It's just old jewelry collecting dust. Mom's been dead for 3 years. Those words hit me like a slap across the face as I stood in my stepsister's messy apartment, staring at what used to be my mother's jewelry box. Empty. Completely empty. My name is Gabriella, and 3 hours ago, I thought I was just stopping by Jasmine's place to check on her. What I found instead was betrayal so deep, it made my hands shake with rage. You see, that wasn't just any jewelry box. It contained my mother Victoria's entire collection. Pieces she'd spent 30 years carefully curating, each one with a story, each one promised to me as my inheritance. The emerald necklace she wore on her wedding day, my grandmother's diamond earrings from 1952, the pearl bracelet she bought with her very first paycheck as a nurse, and my stepsister took everything out and sold it. Now the full scope of their planning hit me. She has been plotting this. Jasmine had asked to borrow Mom's jewelry box months ago, claiming she wanted to keep it safe while I was dealing with the estate paperwork. I'd trusted her completely. I'd been such a fool. I slammed her door so hard the walls shook and practically ran to my car, tears of rage burning my eyes. 3 years. It had been 3 years since Mom died, and I was still protecting this family, still trying to hold everyone together, still putting everyone else's needs before my own. And this was what I got in return. But here's where this story takes a turn that none of us saw coming, including me. As I sat in my car, trying to calm down enough to drive, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I was too angry, too hurt to deal with telemarketers or robocalls. But something made me pick up. Hello? Is this Gabriela Martinez, Victoria Martinez's daughter? The voice was gravelly, older, unfamiliar. My heart skipped a beat at the mention of my mother's name. Yes, this is Gabriela. Who is this? Ma'am, my name is Eddie, and I own Sunset Pawn on 5th Street. I bought some jewelry from a young lady earlier this week who said it belonged to her stepmother. But I need to talk to you about one of the boxes. The emerald necklace box. There's something you need to know. My blood ran cold. The emerald necklace box. That contained Mom's most treasured piece, the one she wore on every anniversary, every special occasion. What could a pawn shop owner possibly need to tell me about it that couldn't wait? What about the necklace? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ma'am, I've been in this business for 35 years, and I've never seen anything like this. I was examining the piece for authentication when I noticed something unusual in the box it came in. I had the box X-rayed to be sure, but there's a hidden compartment inside. And whatever your mother put in there, she clearly never intended for it to see the light of day. My mouth went dry. A hidden compartment? In all the years I'd watched Mom wear that necklace, through all our conversations about the jewelry collection, she'd never mentioned anything like that in its box. Can you meet me at my shop tonight? I think this is something you're gonna want to see in person. And ma'am, bring some identification. What I found there, it changes everything. Before we continue this wild ride together, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to take turns that will leave you questioning everything you think you know about family, loyalty, and the secrets our loved ones keep. And I want to know, have you ever discovered something about a family member after they died that completely changed how you saw them? Drop your answer in the comments below. The call ended, leaving me sitting in stunned silence outside Jasmine's apartment. Hidden compartment. Changes everything. What could my mother have possibly hidden in that necklace that was so important? A complete stranger felt compelled to track me down. As I started my car and headed toward Sunset Pawn, I had no idea that I was about to uncover a web of lies, betrayal, and secrets that would not only explain why Mom had been so protective of her jewelry, but would also give me the power to bring down the people who thought they could steal from our family and get away with it. What Mom had hidden in that necklace box wasn't just going to change everything. It was going to be the key to the most satisfying revenge I never saw coming. Before I tell you what I found in that pawn shop, you need to understand who I am and how my family got to this point. Because what happened that night wasn't just about stolen jewelry. It was the culmination of years of me being the responsible one while everyone else took advantage of my loyalty. My name is Gabriela Lopez. I'm 28 years old, and I'm a registered nurse at City General Hospital. I've been taking care of people my entire adult life, both at work and at home. And honestly, I'm exhausted. When I was 16, my world changed forever when my dad died in a car accident. Mom was devastated, struggling to keep our house, working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I stepped up. I got a part-time job, helped with bills, took care of Mom when she came home exhausted every night. That's just who I am, the fixer, the caretaker, the one who puts everyone else first. 2 years later, when I was 18, Mom met Robert at a grief counseling group. He was a widower with 2 kids, Jasmine, who was 14 at the time, and Tyler, who was 16. Robert seemed like a good man. Kind, stable, employed. And Mom deserved happiness after everything she'd been through. When they got married, I genuinely tried to be the big sister Jasmine and Tyler never had. Their biological mother had abandoned them when Jasmine was only 8. Just packed up one day and left. I understood that kind of pain, that feeling of being let down by the people who are supposed to protect you. So I embraced them. I taught Jasmine how to drive. I helped her with her college applications. I spent my own money taking her shopping for prom dresses. When Tyler struggled in school, I tutored him in math for hours every week. I wanted us to be a real family. But there was always this tension, this undercurrent of resentment from Robert's side of the family. They never quite accepted that Mom and I had been a unit long before they came along. And they especially never understood the significance of Mom's jewelry collection. See, that collection wasn't just accessories to us. It was our family history. Every piece told a story. The diamond engagement ring belonged to my great-grandmother, who wore it through the Great Depression and 2 world wars. The pearl earrings were Mom's first purchase with her very first nursing paycheck in 1995. The sapphire bracelet was a gift from my dad on their 10th anniversary, just 6 months before he died. And that emerald necklace? That was Mom's most prized possession. She'd saved for 3 years to buy it, working double shifts and skipping meals. She wore it on every important occasion: her wedding to my dad, my high school graduation, her nursing school graduation at age 35. When Mom got sick with cancer 4 years ago, she called me to her bedside and took my hands in hers. "Gabriela," she said, "I need you to promise me something. This jewelry collection, it's going to be your security blanket. If anything ever happens to me, if you ever need money or find yourself in trouble, you sell these pieces. But until then, you keep them safe. They're our family's legacy." I promised her. How could I not? But Jasmine and Tyler never got it. To them, jewelry was just shiny objects that could be converted to cash. They didn't understand that the emerald necklace represented Mom's determination to build something beautiful despite losing her first husband. They didn't care that the diamond earrings had been my grandmother's pride and joy for 60 years. Over the years, there were small betrayals. Jasmine borrowed Mom's credit card for shopping sprees. Tyler took money from Mom's purse and claimed he forgot to ask. Robert never disciplined them, always making excuses. "They're still adjusting to having a stepmother," he'd say. "They're grieving their real mom." But I was grieving too. I was grieving my dad, and later, watching my mom slowly fade away from cancer. Yet somehow, I was always expected to be the understanding one, the mature one, the one who held everyone together. When Mom's cancer got worse, guess who was at the hospital every single day? Me. Guess who took unpaid leave from work to be with her during chemo? Me. Guess who held her hand during those terrifying nights when the pain was so bad she couldn't sleep? Me. Tyler was too busy with his latest business scheme, some cryptocurrency investment that predictably failed. Jasmine had too much anxiety to handle seeing Mom sick. Robert came occasionally, but he was dealing with his own grief about potentially losing his second wife. I gave up my college fund to help pay for Mom's medical bills. I postponed my own dreams, my own relationships, my own life, to make sure she had everything she needed. And I did it willingly. Because that's what you do for the people you love. Mom died 3 years ago, and I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. The other 3 showed up 20 minutes later, smelling like the restaurant where they'd been having dinner while I watched our mother die. But I pushed down my resentment. I planned the funeral, handled the paperwork, and made sure everyone was taken care of. Because that's what Mom would have wanted. Now, driving toward Sunset Pond that night, all of that history was crashing over me like a wave. Years of being taken for granted, of putting everyone else first, of watching my step-siblings treat Mom's memory like an inconvenience. The pawn shop was in a rough part of town, neon lights flickering, security cameras on every corner. But when I walked inside, I immediately felt something different about this place. It was clean, organized, and the man behind the counter had kind eyes despite his gruff appearance. "You must be Gabriella," he said, extending a weathered hand. "I'm Eddie. Thank you for coming so quickly." Eddie looked like he was in his 60s, with gray hair and calloused hands that spoke of decades of hard work. But there was something trustworthy about him, something that made me feel safe in what could have been a very sketchy situation. "I have to tell you," Eddie continued, "in 35 years of running this shop, I've never made a call like this. But when I saw what was in that necklace box, I knew I couldn't sleep until I contacted you." He led me to a back room, where the emerald box lay on a velvet cloth under a bright lamp. It looked exactly as I remembered, elegant, timeless, beautiful. But Eddie pointed to a tiny seam I'd never noticed before. "Your stepsister had no idea," he said quietly. "When she brought the collection in, she was in a hurry, seemed nervous, said she needed quick cash for a family emergency. I paid her fair market value, but I always examine pieces thoroughly for insurance purposes." Eddie picked up the box with gentle hands. "This clasp here, it's not just decorative, it's a mechanism." He pressed a tiny lever I never would have found, and suddenly, a small compartment in the back of the box clicked open. My heart stopped. Inside that hidden space were 3 tightly rolled pieces of paper, a small brass key, and what looked like dried flowers pressed flat. Eddie had laid everything out carefully on the velvet cloth. "I haven't read the papers," he said, stepping back. "That's your business. But I thought you should know. Your mother went to a lot of trouble to hide these things. And given how your stepsister was acting when she sold this, I had a feeling she had no idea what she was really giving up." My hands were shaking as I reached for the first piece of paper. Whatever Mom had hidden in this necklace box, she'd done it deliberately. She'd worn this secret against her heart for years, and somehow, she'd made sure it would find its way back to me. As I carefully unrolled that first document, I had no idea that everything I thought I knew about my family was about to be turned completely upside down. Eddie let me take everything home that night. He said he'd hold on to the rest of the jewelry collection until I figured out what to do, but he insisted I needed to read those papers in private. "Some secrets," he told me, "are meant to be discovered slowly." Back in my apartment, I spread everything out on my kitchen table under the brightest lamp I had. My hands were still trembling as I carefully unrolled the first piece of paper, terrified it might crumble after being hidden away for who knows how long. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was a marriage certificate. But not the one I remembered from Mom and Robert's wedding ceremony 8 years ago. This was different. This was an original certificate from the courthouse, dated 2 weeks before their big church wedding, and at the bottom, where both parties were supposed to sign, only Mom's signature was there. Robert had never signed it. I stared at that document for a full minute, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. According to this official record, my mother and Robert were never legally married. Never. Their entire 8-year marriage was a lie. But why? Why would Mom go through with a wedding ceremony, let everyone believe they were married, but never make it legal? The second document answered that question in the most shocking way possible. It was a life insurance policy. $500,000. And I was listed as the sole beneficiary. Not Robert. Not Jasmine and Tyler. Just me. The policy was dated 6 months after Mom's wedding to Robert, which meant she'd taken it out after discovering whatever secret had made her keep their marriage unofficial. But it was the third document that completely shattered my understanding of everything. A letter. In Mom's handwriting. Addressed to me. My dearest Gabriella, it began. If you're reading this, then something has happened to me, and somehow this necklace has found its way back to you. I pray you never have to read these words, but I couldn't leave this world without making sure you knew the truth about Robert and his children. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely focus on the words. 3 months after our wedding ceremony, I discovered Robert's secret. He's a gambling addict, sweetheart. Not just casual betting, he owes over $200,000 to some very dangerous people. When I confronted him, he broke down and confessed everything. The reason he wanted to marry me so quickly wasn't love, it was desperation. He needed access to my assets, my house, my life insurance policy through the hospital. He was planning to claim everything as my legal husband when I died. I had to stop reading. I literally couldn't breathe. This man I'd called my stepfather for 8 years, this man I defended when people questioned how quickly he and Mom got together after Dad's death. He was a predator, a con artist who'd targeted my grieving mother. But Mom was smarter than any of us knew. The letter continued. I never signed that marriage certificate, Gabriella. I told Robert I'd lost it and needed to get a replacement, then kept stalling. Meanwhile, I opened new bank accounts he didn't know about, moved my most valuable assets into a safety deposit box, and took out this life insurance policy with you as the only beneficiary. I wore this necklace every day as a reminder of what I was protecting, our family's legacy, your father's memory, and your future. Tears were streaming down my face as I read the final paragraph. The dried flowers in this necklace box are from your father's funeral. The last flowers I placed on his grave before I met Robert. They're my promise to your dad that I would never let anyone destroy what we built together. Robert and his children think they're entitled to what we worked for, but they have no legal claim to anything. Everything is yours, sweetheart. You were the only one who truly loved me. The only one who sacrificed for our family. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this while I was alive, but I was too ashamed that I'd fallen for his lies. I sat in my kitchen for an hour, just staring at those documents. Everything made sense now. Why Mom had been so secretive about financial matters in her final years. Why she'd insisted the jewelry stay with me. Why did she make me promise to keep it safe? She'd been protecting me from Robert and his children this entire time. But there was something else. At the bottom of Mom's letter, almost like an afterthought, she'd written, "Be careful of Tyler's business ventures. He's exactly like his father, always looking for easy money through other people's misery." That line sent a chill down my spine. Tyler's current business opportunity that Jasmine had funded with my mother's jewelry. What exactly was it? I opened my laptop and started digging. Tyler had mentioned something called Chen Property Solutions to Jasmine. It took me about 10 minutes to find their website, and what I saw there made me sick to my stomach. They weren't just flipping houses. They were targeting elderly homeowners, specifically people facing foreclosure or medical debt. Their business model involved convincing seniors to sell their homes for far below market value, promising to help them avoid the embarrassment of foreclosure. But here's the disgusting part. They were then immediately reselling those same homes for 3 or 4 times what they'd paid. They were making massive profits by exploiting people at their most vulnerable moments. Tyler's business partner was a man named Marcus Chen, and when I looked him up, I found complaints filed against him with the Better Business Bureau, accusations of elder fraud, and at least 3 pending lawsuits from families claiming he'd scammed their grandparents. My mother's stolen jewelry was funding elder abuse. But it got worse. So much worse. I found the address of their next target property on Tyler's social media posts. He'd been bragging about their biggest score yet. A beautiful Victorian house in the historic district that they were about to acquire for pennies on the dollar. The address was 1247 Maple Street. I knew that address. I'd been to that house 100 times. It belonged to Mrs. Thompson, Mom's former neighbor and closest friend, the sweet 78-year-old woman who used to bring us homemade cookies every Christmas, who'd held my hand at Mom's funeral, who'd told me she thought of me as the granddaughter she never had. Tyler and Marcus were targeting Mrs. Thompson. I immediately called her, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. "Gabriella, honey?" Mrs. Thompson's voice was tired, strained. "I was just thinking about you. How are you holding up, sweetheart?" "Mrs. Thompson, I need to ask you something, and please be honest with me. Has anyone approached you about selling your house recently?" There was a long pause. "Well, yes, actually. There are these two young men who've been very persistent. They say I'm in danger of losing the house because of my medical bills from Harold's cancer treatment, and they want to help me sell quickly before the bank takes it. But Gabriella, I'm not sure I trust them. Something feels wrong." My heart was racing. "Mrs. Thompson, whatever you do, don't sign anything with them. Don't give them any money. Don't let them in your house. Can you promise me that?" "Of course, dear. But Gabriella, you sound upset. Is everything all right?" How could I tell this sweet woman that my stepbrother was trying to steal her family home using money he'd gotten from selling my dead mother's jewelry? How could I explain that she was being targeted by people I'd once considered family? If you're following this story, please hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next is going to blow your mind. And I want to know, have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was involved in something that made you question everything about them? Share your story in the comments below. "Mrs. Thompson," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "I'm going to come see you tomorrow morning. There are some things I need to tell you about those men. But tonight, make sure all your doors and windows are locked, okay?" After I hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen, pieces of a horrible puzzle clicking into place. Tyler hadn't just stolen Mom's jewelry for a random business venture. He'd specifically chosen to target vulnerable elderly people, just like Marcus had taught him. And their first victim was going to be a woman who'd been like family to us. This wasn't just theft anymore. This wasn't just about jewelry or money or family drama. This was about protecting innocent people from predators who used other people's desperation to make themselves rich. And those predators had made one critical mistake. They'd stolen from the wrong family. I looked down at Mom's letter one more time, reading her final words. "Everything is yours, sweetheart. You were the only one who truly loved me." Mom had left me more than money. She'd left me the truth. And now I was going to use that truth to make sure Tyler, Marcus, and everyone involved in their sick scheme paid for what they'd done. But first, I had to save Mrs. Thompson, and I had exactly 12 hours to figure out how. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced my apartment until sunrise, my nursing training kicking into overdrive. See, when you work in an ICU, you learn that emotions can kill your patients. Panic leads to mistakes. Anger clouds judgment. If you want to save someone's life, you have to think clearly, methodically, and strategically. Tyler and Jeff had no idea they were dealing with someone who'd spent years making life or death decisions under pressure. At 7 a.m. sharp, I was knocking on Mrs. Thompson's door with fresh coffee and pastries from her favorite bakery. I needed to understand exactly what we were dealing with before I made my next move. "Oh, Gabriella, you didn't have to do this," Mrs. Thompson said, welcoming me into the same living room where I'd spent countless afternoons as a child. But now I could see what I'd missed on the phone. The stack of medical bills on her coffee table, the worry lines around her eyes, the way her hands shook slightly when she poured the coffee. "Mrs. Thompson, tell me everything about these men who contacted you. Every detail, no matter how small." What she told me made my blood boil. But I kept my voice calm and professional. Tyler and Jeff had been showing up at her house for 2 weeks, sometimes separately, sometimes together. They'd researched her situation thoroughly. They knew about her husband Harold's recent death from cancer. They knew about the mounting medical bills. They even knew she'd been having trouble keeping up with property taxes. They said the bank was going to foreclose in 30 days. Mrs. Thompson explained, her voice trembling. They had all these official-looking papers showing my debt. They said if I sold to them immediately, I could walk away with enough money to rent a nice apartment and still have some left over for emergencies. How much did they offer you? $45,000. They said it was generous considering the house needed so much work. I almost choked on my coffee. Mrs. Thompson's Victorian house was in the historic district. Even needing repairs, it was worth at least $300,000. They were trying to steal her home for 15 cents on the dollar. But here's what really showed me how calculated this scheme was. They'd told her she had to decide immediately because they had other properties lined up and couldn't wait. Classic pressure tactics. Create false urgency. Overwhelm the victim with paperwork they don't understand, then swoop in like saviors. Mrs. Thompson, can I see those papers they gave you? She handed me a folder full of documents that looked official, but felt wrong. Bank letterheads that didn't quite match the real thing. Foreclosure notices with formatting errors. These weren't from any legitimate institution. They were forgeries designed to scare an elderly woman into panic. I photographed every single page with my phone, documenting the evidence. Then I made Mrs. Thompson a promise. You're not losing this house, and those men are never gonna bother you again, but I need you to do exactly what I tell you, okay? My next stop was the legal aid office downtown. I'd learned about them when helping patients navigate medical debt, but I'd never needed their services personally. The lawyer I spoke with, a sharp woman named Kate Martinez, listened to my story with growing alarm. Miss Lopez, what you're describing is part of a much larger pattern, Kate told me, pulling out a thick file. We've had 6 complaints in the past 4 months about Chen Property Solutions. All elderly homeowners, all facing financial stress, all pressured into selling for far below market value. 6 victims. 6 families destroyed by Tyler and Jeff's greed. The problem is proving conspiracy and getting these people arrested before they disappear with more people's homes, Kate continued. We need solid evidence, recorded conversations, financial records, proof of the forgery. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I was going to use Mom's insurance money not for my own security, but as a weapon against the people who thought they could prey on vulnerable families. I hired the best private investigator Kate recommended, a former FBI agent named Nathan Park, who specialized in financial crimes. Within 48 hours, Nathan had uncovered information that painted an even darker picture than I'd imagined. Jeff Chen had been running variations of this scam for 8 years across 3 different states. His pattern was always the same: partner with a local person who could provide credibility and connections, target elderly homeowners in financial distress, use forged documents and pressure tactics to force quick sales, then disappear when the heat got too intensive. Tyler wasn't Jeff's first local partner, he was his 4th. The previous 3 had all been arrested when their schemes collapsed, but Jeff always managed to slip away with most of the money before law enforcement could catch him. But here's what really shocked me. Tyler's desperate situation was worse than I'd realized. Nathan discovered that Tyler owed money to multiple creditors. He'd taken cash advances on credit cards to invest in cryptocurrency that crashed. He'd borrowed Robert's car without telling him. He was facing eviction from his apartment and had already been turned down for loans from every legitimate lender in the city. Tyler wasn't just greedy. He was drowning financially, and Jeff had offered him what seemed like a lifeline. The jewelry money from Jasmine was supposed to be Tyler's investment in their partnership, but according to Nathan's research, Jeff was planning to cut Tyler out as soon as they closed the Thompson deal. Tyler had no idea he was being used just as much as their victims were. That's when I realized something crucial. Tyler's desperation made him vulnerable, and vulnerable people make mistakes. I started building my trap carefully, methodically, like preparing for a complex surgery. Every step had to be planned perfectly, because I was only going to get one chance at this. First, I had Nathan continue monitoring Tyler and Jeff's communications. They were sloppy with digital security, using regular text messages and emails instead of encrypted platforms. We were building a detailed record of their planning, their target lists, their financial arrangements. Second, I worked with Kate to coordinate with law enforcement. The FBI's Elder Fraud Division was already aware of Jeff, but they needed evidence of active crimes being committed to make arrests that would stick. Third, I prepared Mrs. Thompson. I taught her how to record phone conversations legally, gave her specific questions to ask that would get Tyler and Jeff to incriminate themselves on tape. She was nervous, but determined. Harold's medical bills had been caused by the same condemnatory tactics, and she wanted to make sure no other families went through what she'd experienced. But my masterstroke was something Tyler would never see coming. I decided to use Jasmine. See, despite everything she'd done, Jasmine wasn't evil like Tyler. She was weak, easily manipulated, and desperately wanted to belong somewhere. She'd stolen Mom's jewelry because Tyler had convinced her it was the right thing to do for their family business. But she had no idea what Tyler was really doing with that money. I started showing up at the coffee shop where Jasmine worked, just happening to be there when she was on break. Casual conversations about how I was finally going through Mom's old papers and discovering so many things I never knew about. "You know, Jasmine," I said during one of these carefully orchestrated encounters, "I found some documents in Mom's desk that I think Robert should probably see. Financial stuff, insurance papers, that kind of thing. I'm just not sure how to bring it up with him." I could see the curiosity in her eyes. Jasmine had always been nosy, always wanted to know family secrets. And Tyler had probably told her to keep an eye on me, to report back if I discovered anything important. "What kind of documents?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just boring legal stuff. Marriage certificates, insurance policies, some letters. Nothing that would interest you." I was planting seeds, making her think there were valuable family documents she didn't know about. Documents that Tyler might want to know about for his business. Sure enough, within 2 days, Nathan's surveillance confirmed that Tyler had started asking questions about what else might be hidden in Mom's belongings. He was getting desperate for more capital, as the Thompson deal faced unexpected delays, and the idea that there might be more valuable items or information he could exploit was too tempting to ignore. That's when I knew I had him exactly where I wanted him. Tyler's greed, Jeff's overconfidence, and Jasmine's weakness were about to collide in a way that would expose their entire operation. But they thought they were the hunters, and I was just another victim. They had no idea that the prey they'd been stalking had turned into the predator. And the trap was about to snap shut. The trap was set for a Sunday afternoon at Robert's house. I'd called him that morning, my voice carefully controlled, asking if we could have a family meeting to finally settle some estate matters that had come up. I told him I'd found some documents that affected everyone, and it would be better to discuss them all together. Robert, still completely unaware of what was coming, agreed immediately. He even suggested we make it a nice family gathering. Maybe order pizza, catch up, put all the drama behind us. If only he knew. I arrived at 2 p.m. sharp, carrying a manila folder and wearing Mom's emerald necklace. Jasmine was already there, fidgeting nervously on the couch. She'd been asking me all week about those documents I'd mentioned, but I'd stayed vague, just mysterious enough to keep her curiosity burning. "Gabriella, I'm so glad you called this meeting," Robert said, giving me a hug. "It's time we acted like a real family again. Victoria would have wanted us to stick together." Hearing him invoke my mother's name while knowing what I knew made my stomach turn, but I smiled and nodded. You're absolutely right, Robert. Mom would have wanted the truth to come out. I sat down across from them and opened my folder with steady hands. My nursing training had taught me to deliver devastating news with calm professionalism, and I was about to use every bit of that skill. I found some interesting documents when I was going through Mom's things, I began, pulling out the unsigned marriage certificate. Starting with this, I slid it across the coffee table. Robert picked it up, his face confused at first, then slowly draining of color as he realized what he was looking at. "This is our marriage certificate," he said quietly. "But this isn't signed." "That's right, Robert, you and Mom were never legally married. She discovered some things about you that made her decide to protect her assets and, more importantly, protect me." Jasmine was staring at the document, her mouth open. "What does this mean?" I pulled out the life insurance policy next. "It means that Mom left everything to me. Her house, her bank accounts, her life insurance policy worth $500,000. You have no legal claim to any of it because you were never actually her stepchildren in the eyes of the law." Robert's hands were shaking now. "Gabriella, I don't understand. We had a ceremony, we lived as husband and wife for 8 years. "You lived as husband and wife," I corrected, "while you hid a gambling addiction and planned to steal everything she'd worked for when she died. She found out about your debts, Robert. She knew you only wanted to marry her for her money." That's when I pulled out Mom's letter and read the parts about Robert's gambling, his financial desperation, his plan to claim her assets. With each word I watched him crumble further into the couch. Jasmine was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Gabriella, I'm so sorry about the jewelry. Tyler said it was the right thing to do, that it was just sitting there unused." "Speaking of Tyler," I said, checking my watch, "he should be here any minute. I told him I found some valuable family documents he might be interested in. I'm curious to see what he has to say about his business partnership." As if on cue, the front door opened and Tyler walked in, followed by a man I recognized from Nathan's surveillance photos. Jeff Chen looked exactly like the predator he was, slick suit, fake smile, calculating eyes that immediately began assessing the room. "Hey everyone," Tyler said, his voice artificially cheerful. "Gabriella, you said you found something important?" "Oh, I did," I replied, pulling out Nathan's investigation report. "I found out all about Chen Property Solutions and what you've been doing with my mother's jewelry money." Tyler's face went white. Jeff stepped forward, his demeanor shifting from friendly to aggressive in an instant. "Tyler, what is she talking about?" Jeff demanded. I looked directly at Tyler as I continued. "I know about Mrs. Thompson. I know about the forged foreclosure documents. I know about the 6 other elderly people you've already scammed. And I know that the $15,000 you used to fund this operation came from selling my dead mother's jewelry collection." "Now wait just a minute," Jeff started, but I held up my hand. "I'm not finished. I also know that you've been planning to cut Tyler out of the profits once you close the Thompson deal. And Tyler, I know about your gambling debts, your eviction notice, and the fact that you forged Robert's signature on loan documents." Robert's head snapped up. "What loan documents?" Tyler was backing toward the door now, panic in his eyes. "Gabriella, you don't understand the business world. Sometimes you have to take risks." That's when I heard the cars pulling up outside. "Actually, Tyler, I understand perfectly, which is why I contacted the FBI Elder Fraud Division 3 days ago." The front door burst open, and federal agents flooded into the living room. "Tyler Morrison and Jeff Chen, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder fraud, forgery, and wire fraud." The chaos that followed was like something out of a movie. Jeff immediately started yelling about lawyers and false accusations, while Tyler just stood there in shock as they handcuffed him. Jasmine was sobbing uncontrollably, finally understanding that her brother wasn't the successful businessman she'd thought he was. But the moment that broke my heart was watching Robert realize how thoroughly his own children had used him. When the agents showed him the loan documents with his forged signature, he just sat there staring at Tyler with complete devastation in his eyes. "You used my name to borrow money for this scheme?" Robert whispered. Tyler wouldn't even look at him as they led him away. That was 6 months ago, and so much has changed since then. Tyler was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Jeff got 7 years and will be deported back to Taiwan when he's released. The justice system worked exactly as it should have. Jasmine entered therapy to deal with years of manipulation and abuse from her brother. It's been slow, but we've started rebuilding our relationship. She's working 2 jobs now to pay back every penny of the jewelry money, even though I told her it wasn't necessary. She says she needs to do it for her own healing. Robert sold the house and moved into a small apartment downtown. He's been attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings and seeing a therapist to address the addiction that started this whole mess. He's also been volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping other families avoid the kind of predatory schemes his son was running. Mrs. Thompson not only kept her home, but she's become like the grandmother I never had. We have coffee every Sunday morning, and she tells me stories about my mother that I'd never heard before. She's also become an advocate for elder fraud prevention, speaking at community centers about the warning signs to watch for. I used Mom's insurance money to start a scholarship fund in her name for nursing students from single-parent families. It felt like the perfect way to honor her memory and help other people the way she always helped others. But there's one more person I needed to thank. Last week, I went back to Sunset Pawn to see Eddie. He was behind the counter, helping a young mother pawn her wedding ring to pay for her child's medicine. When he saw me, his weathered face broke into a huge smile. "Gabriella, I was wondering when you'd come back. How did everything work out?" I told him the whole story, and when I tried to give him a reward for being honest about the necklace, he waved me away. Tyler and Jeff are in prison. Mrs. Thompson is safe in her home. Jasmine is healing. Robert is getting the help he needs. And I'm finally at peace, knowing that I honored my mother's memory in the way she would have wanted. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button, because standing up for what's right is something we all need to do more often. And I want to know, have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and doing what's right? What did you choose? And how did it turn out? Share your story in the comments below.